In this exercise, we're going to look over some basic platformer movements. I've got a player here, and we're just going to get him to do some left and right movement and a jump and create a little environment for it to work inside. I've got a finished version here, and I'll just hit preview to run it now and give you a little demo. We've got our blue player here and our red walls and sort of some red stairs, if you will, right here. So let's give this a preview and take a look. And as you can see, when it starts, it drops. It does have gravity, if you will, attached to the blue character. And if I hit my arrow keys, I've got my arrow keys left and right. And I can move it. And if I move it off the edge, it will fall, as you can see here. And if I hit my space bar, it also jumps. You can see there's some moderate bounce to that player. Let's just run it off the table here. And again, it has bounce, left and right. Some very basic movements that we will start to build now. So here we go. Let's start a new file. All right, we'll start with a new file here. File new. And let's make this for the iPad landscape. And we'll call this platform exercise. Okay, I'll just put a space in here. And let's click on this little button here called Resolution Independence. That will make it scalable basically for the various outputting devices. So it gives us a little more flexibility with that on. And we'll actually, that's the project title. We'll also use that as the file name. So let's go File, Save As, and I'm going to save this in my common folder I have on my desktop. Game Salad Course, and we'll call this Platform Exercise. Okay. And here we go, save. All right, so the first thing I'll do is I'll just expand this window out here. And we'll click on scenes to start. So we always start with an initial scene. It's empty, but it's a place to start. And I can double click it to get inside. And as you can see here, we've got our screen area on the right and all of our panels on the left-hand side. So to start with, we need some elements on the stage which are known as actors. So we generate new actors by clicking on the plus sign here. And I'm going to need, I can reproduce them on the stage, but I'm going to need something to create the walls and the stairs, and then another one for the little player. So let's just generate two actors right now. Click twice on the plus sign down here. And I'll triple click on the name and just rename it. I'll call this first one Platform. Hit my Enter key. And if I double click on it, I can see the properties and the attributes for that actor. So what I want to do is I'll give it a little color here. I can click on the color chip, and I guess we'll just make these red. A little bit darker. There we go. And we're going to go in and address some of the physics. So if I go down to physics here, when I put these walls in place, I don't want them to be able to move or anything. So I'm going to uncheck movable. And then we can go to the back button. And we're back in our inspector here. And now I will name the second actor, triple click it. And we'll call this one player. And I'll just color it blue. I'll hit my Enter key. Double click on the icon and just hit the color chip in the attributes and just make it this light blue, and then click my back button, and now we have two actors which will be ultimately elements on the stage. You can adjust your windows a bit here, so if I can move this over a bit, just scroll over here, I can see my whole stage. So I'll start by putting a ceiling, a floor, and two walls in here. So we'll use the platform. Actually, one more thing I wanted to do with both of these actors is change their size on stage. So I will double click and go back inside, and I'll explain why. Let me just go over to size here. And right now it's 100 by 100 pixels by default. I'm going to change it to 64, and I'll tell you why again. When graphics are scaling in Game Salad, the best resolution and the best speed and the performance that you can get off the game engine is if they're in multiples of 4. So let's say I had 4 by 4 or 8 by 8. Anything that can divide by 4, 16 by 16, 32 by 32, or in this case, 64 by 64. It just, again, makes things sharper and makes the engine run faster when all of our actors are divided in numbers that divide by 4. Let me go back here and we'll actually change the player size to 64. Hit my tab key, 64, hit my tab key. Oh, let me change that to 64. There we go. And I've done a fair amount of stuff. Let me just save my file. It's always prudent to save as frequently as you can. And again, I'll drag this over just a bit here. And we'll start to build a little scene. I'll grab the platform actor, drag it down to the bottom here. And if you click on it once, you'll see these little handles appear, and I'm just going to drag on its horizontal stretch. And once on the stage, I can actually duplicate by option clicking and dragging. On a PC, it would be alt clicking and dragging. And then I can reposition that. Then I'll grab one for the wall here and just drag the stretch handle for the vertical. And again, I can option click, drag that over to the right. And we've got 2 walls, a ceiling, and a floor. Now, unfortunately, in Game Salad, I can't scale down my view. Maybe in the next version, hopefully. Alright, so I'm just going to put in a little impediment here, if you will, a little bit of a floor with a staircase, so we'll just grab that and stretch that out a bit. Option click to duplicate, and just position a couple down here to make what looks like a staircase. Click away to deselect. Again, makes good sense to save. And now we'll put the player in the game, and I'm going to start him in the upper left corner, up in the air, if you will. First thing I want to do, if I hit preview right now, we can try it. Nothing much is going to happen. It's all static. So let's just click our back button. And we'll continue to build. So basically all of the attributes, all of the programming is going to go into our little player this time. What we're going to do to start is we're going to create some gravity. And we can do that with an accelerate attribute. And we attach attributes by double clicking on the player. We can either do it in the inspector, which is this sort of, is like ground zero. It's the prototype for anyone that's on stage, because I could actually drag this and put 3 instances of it on stage. Let me highlight 2 of these and get rid of them though. And they are known as instances when you put them on the stage. So they have been basically duplicated and on the stage. If I do not change anything on the attributes on the stage, it will adopt whatever attributes may have been put on it as a prototype. In other words, if I was to double click here, I could attach an attribute, which would be the accelerate. And you can see down here in my library under behaviors, I can scroll and I have a whole lot of attributes to choose from and apply. I'll start with accelerate and drag it in this window right here. This first window is for direction, and you can grab the little wheel, and we want it to go downward, and I'll highlight that and I'll make it 270, which is exactly straight down. Remember, these are in degrees on a circle. And I'll increase that acceleration to 300. We'll also make this relative to the scene. Okay, now if I hit preview, you can see that the little box fell down and out of sight. So what we want to do is we want to make it so that when it touches or hits part of the red, it stops. So we need to put in what's called the collide. And down here again in my behaviors, I can grab the collide attribute. And it says bounce when colliding with actor type. And there's only the two that exist, so that one called platform are all the red blocks. So now when it hits collide, or rather, sorry, when it hits anything called platform, it should collide and it should stop. But there is, I will say this, there is a default bounce built into all of these elements, which we will need to deal with probably next. But let's see what we get here. Preview. There we go. And it is bouncing, and it's actually bouncing even more, I think, each time. Now it's actually hitting the ceiling and bouncing back. So we want to put some control over this bounce now. But we do have gravity, and we do have objects that are solid, so that things can't go through them anymore. So let's just go back. I'll actually save at this point, and we'll modify the bounce. So let me go back one more step. Now bounce is affected as a reaction as well as an action. So there's a bounce attribute attached to the platform as well as the player. So I need to deal with both. So let's start by double clicking platform. And if we scroll down here to physics, there's a feature called bounciness. Let's just double click on the number and type in a 0. So there will be 0 bounciness associated with the platform elements. Now we'll go back and we'll put a little bit of bounce in the player, but we'll bring it down. So I'll open up physics. I'll go to bounciness and I'll double click. 1 is basically meaning it will bounce the exact height that it started from. So it's basically 100% bounce. Now gravity doesn't work like that. So let's bring it down considerably to about 0.35 of the full bounciness. So 0.35 is what I put in, and I hit my enter key. Let's hit preview and take a look at that now. Okay, that's a lot more reasonable for what we're trying to do. Now if you want to see it again, you can reload the project by hitting this reset button. There's also a pause button if there was more activity going on. So you can just keep trying it like that until there's more to do with interactivity. So the next thing we will do is add a little interactivity. We're going to attribute a left and a right movement to the left and right arrow on the keyboard. In another lesson, we'll actually create touchscreen effects to create movement, but for now, we're just going to work off of the computer keyboard. So let's go back. And again, I guess I could have stayed there. We're putting all of this, all of these properties inside of the player actor. So I'll double click here. Now, I could double click it on the stage, but that means that any attributes that go in here will not be in here. So for now, I'm going to just work with the prototype straight from the inspector. All right, so the next thing we wanted to do is put in some left and right movements. So we need to create a rule for that. The rule will be if I hit the left key, move the player to the left on the screen. So let's click Create Rule. And you can name these rules by double clicking on the title. So I'm just going to call this one Move Left. And in this area here, we have the conditions for the rule to be executed. So actor receives event. We're going to choose, well, actually, let me talk about this for a second because there's two conditions that need to be met. Number one is I only want to be able to move if it's rested on the platform. In other words, if it's on the ground. I don't want it to move if it's flying through the air. Not in this case. So I'm going to put a condition that says it has to be colliding or touching with the platform. So we'll start with that. Actor receives event, overlaps or collides with actor type platform. That means one of the conditions is that it needs to be sitting on the platform. Now I'll get to that second condition, which I was about to start with, which is the mouse, or rather the hand hitting the key on the keyboard, triggering a movement. This time, actor receives event, key, and we'll click on keyboard and it shows us the keypad, and I'll click on the left key. So when the left key is pressed down and the actor is on the platform, we're going to want it to move. And we actually have a behavior called move. So we grab the move and we put it in this area right here. So based on these conditions, it will move, and we want to move the little pointer to the left, and I'll just type in 180, which is exactly to the left horizontally, and the speed will just slow it down to say 150. Hit my tab key relative to the scene. Okay, so let's save that and test it. Hit preview. So it lands. Now if I hit my left arrow, it moves. That's all that's going to happen right now. I can reset it here. Try that again. So let's put in movement to the right now that we know that that works. So back. Now I can duplicate this. There's no need to redo all of this from scratch if it's virtually the same kind of behavior that I want. So what I can do is I can either copy and paste it, or what I'm going to do is hit my Option key on the keyboard and hold it down and drag, which is a very common duplicate shortcut. And I'll change the name to Move Right. Hit my Enter key. Now I'll change the key to the right key, and I'll change the direction, which happens to be 0. 0 is where the move angle starts in Game Salad. So it's a horizontal to the right is 0. And we'll leave the speed at 150. We'll save this and hit preview. And let me try the left. There's the right, there's the left. Now there is gravity. Oh, and you see that it's tumbling here? That could be cool, but I'm going to show you how you can actually avoid that. Let's just go back here and save it. Okay, to get rid of the tumble so that it doesn't tilt one way or the other, we can just go down to fixed rotation and check that box. So now it's fixed, it will stay upright. So let's give that another try. And I'll just hit my right arrow to knock it down. And you see how it stays flat. Still has a little bounce at the bottom. Now our next step is to put in the jump feature to finish this off. So let's just go back here. And I can duplicate this move. I'm just going to collapse some of these here. I can actually grab this, click on it, Option, click and drag. I can use a lot of this stuff over again. We're going to change the name, double click in the title here, and I'll call this Jump. Hit my Enter key. Now, keyboard I'm going to change to spacebar. So when I hit the spacebar, that's what will prompt the jump. But it still needs to be touching the platform as a condition before it can jump. So it can't jump halfway in the air and jump higher. We're going to remove the move behavior, and we're going to replace that with a change velocity. So let's grab change velocity and drag it in here. Now I know the direction for up is 90, so I'm going to type in 90. Hit my tab key there. And I already figured out a speed of about 250 works well for this. Hit my tab key again, and relative to the scene. Now let's preview this. I'll save it first. And hit preview. And if I hit the spacebar, it's a pretty reasonable jump. So spacebar jumps, right arrow moves right, left arrow moves left. And those are just some basic move features for a platform game character. And I'd like you to try to build this now. It goes down, can jump. And there we have it.